It was Thanksgiving weekend when tragedy struck the Wagner family. Robert Wagner made a distress call reporting that his wife, Natalie Wood, was missing from their boat. 6 hours later, her lifeless body was discovered floating in the Pacific Ocean.
Actress Natalie Wood is dead at 43, the apparent victim of a drowning accident off Santa Catalina Island in California.
Despite initially being ruled an accident, new information has surfaced that warranted a fresh investigation into her death. Witnesses who were nearby the Splendor that evening attest to seeing her in the water, leading to speculation that her death was not an accident after all. As the captain of Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood's yacht, Dennis Davern was a witness to the events of that fateful night. A heated argument erupted between the couple, which escalated and continued towards the back of the boat before it suddenly became eerily quiet. Despite being initially ruled as an accidental drowning, the circumstances surrounding Natalie Wood's death were far from clear-cut. There were visible bruises that appeared to be recent, leading to speculation that she may have been the victim of an assault. The prevailing theory is that she slipped and hit a step before rolling into the water, but this explanation is not without controversy. The boat's captain has fueled rumors and allegations of foul play, casting further doubt on the official ruling.
I've always been terrified, still am, of water, dark water, sea water.
Do you believe Natalie Wood was murdered?
I think it's suspicious enough to make us think that something happened.
Do you believe that Robert Wagner knows a lot more about what happened to his wife than he's ever said?
Well, I think he absolutely does because he's the last one to see her.
So, was Natalie Wood's death an accident, or was she murdered? This is Mystery History with Magnus. Natalie Wood was a beloved actress and Hollywood icon whose career spanned over 3 decades. She began her career as a child actress, starring in films like Miracle on 34th Street and The Ghost and Mrs. Moyer. She quickly gained recognition for her talent and charisma, becoming one of the most sought-after young actresses of her generation. Her husband, Robert Wagner, was a star too. However, he wasn't in the same league as his wife and her new friend, Christopher Walken, who both were superstars, and together they went on a sailing trip in the private yacht Splendor in what would be Natalie Wood's last day alive. Wagner took an instant dislike to Walken, who had just won an Academy Award and was rumored to be having an affair with Natalie, with tensions escalating throughout the day. This, however, wasn't the only time Wagner had displayed his jealousy and temper towards his wife. Years earlier, Natalie Wood had fled her house one night out of fear for her life, reported by a new witness. A former neighbor who was 12 years old at the time recalls being woken up by someone banging on the door. It was Natalie Wood who was yelling that Wagner was going to kill her. The witness claims that the neighbor took Natalie in for the night and that she returned home the next morning. After 4 years, Natalie's first marriage came to a bitter end, and she began dating Hollywood heartthrob Warren Beatty before returning to Wagner, saying to a friend,
"Better the devil you know,"
and remarried Wagner. The day before her death, another incident happened. After drinking heavily in the restaurant Avalon, the couple fought over whether to move the boat to the other side of Catalina Island. According to a witness on a nearby boat, Natalie appeared to be the aggressor and was intoxicated during the argument. She eventually left the boat and spent the night crying on Davern's shoulder, expressing her frustration with Wagner's professional jealousy and indicating that she was considering divorcing him again. However, Natalie had a change of heart the next morning and returned to the boat to try and reconcile with Wagner. On Friday evening, Natalie Wood, Robert Wagner, and Captain Dennis Davern were in a bar in Marina del Rey before departing on the Splendor. Tensions soon rose when they met up with Christopher Walken. Witnesses say that Wagner was agitated and tense, while Natalie and Walken seemed to be having a good time together, ignoring him. All 4 were described as being very drunk. When they returned to the yacht, Wagner's anger exploded, and a heated argument ensued with things being thrown about. Davern left the room and went up to the bridge at the top of the boat, and the couple now moved outside and continued their heated argument.
At that point, DeVerne also leaves and goes up to the bridge at the top of the boat, says Lieutenant Carina.
He hears them arguing, the argument's getting louder, and he hears a lot of a thumping. He says it sounds to him like there's like a physical fight going on inside there.
Davern now heard that the fight intensified even more.
DeVerne told investigators that his line of sight was blocked by the boat's rain shield, but he heard everything.
Fighting continued, and then to the back of the boat. I was concerned that something really bad was going down because the fighting, the arguing was so intense.
Davern then heard the argument suddenly stop, and an eerie silence followed. Shortly after, Davern goes down and knocks on Wagner's door.
He's so concerned, he walks back down and he knocks on the door. And Robert Wagner opens the door and he says, he has this crazy look on his face, and he says, "Is everything okay, boss?" And he's like, "Go away." He looks so angry. He says, "I was worried about my own safety."
2 new witnesses also heard the argument and saw figures on the back of the boat that they recognized as Robert Wagner and Natalie Wood arguing. An argument that later suddenly stopped, but they were, at this point, too far away to see anything happening on the boat. Wagner now tells Christopher Walken that Natalie is gone in the dinghy, but also says that there is no need to go and look for her. Instead of searching the water frantically after his wife, Wagner now opens a bottle of whiskey and starts drinking with Walken. At one point, Wagner becomes so angry that he smashes the whiskey bottle so it breaks into pieces. It's first at 1:30 a.m., about an hour and a half after it became silent on the boat, that Wagner told Davern that Wood was missing and asked him and Walken to search the boat for her. While this search inside the boat goes on, many has speculated that someone could have had time to untie the dinghy if Woods was murdered and didn't leave with it. According to Wagner's statement, they argued and he went into the cabin and he didn't go look for her because he had no reason to think that anything bad had happened. The problem with this story is that it doesn't make sense. Because Natalie Wood was terrified of the ocean and couldn't swim, why would she leave the ship in a small dinghy in rough seas alone? And instead of searching for his missing wife, Wagner now asks other people in the nearest town to search for her, while he himself went to a hotel. She also had a heated argument with Wagner, just the night before, when Wagner wanted to move the boat to the other side of the island. Because of the rough water, she wanted to wait until the ocean became quieter, but eventually gave up and Wagner got his way. The Coast Guard was finally called, over 3 hours after Natalie was last seen alive. The body of Natalie Wood was found a few hours later, floating in the water off Blue Cavern Point. Initially, all 3 men told Detective Dwayne Razor that they thought Natalie had taken the dinghy ashore, and he believed them. Razor only interviewed Wagner one more time, the day after Natalie's funeral with his attorney present, and he determined that there was no indication of any jealousy or foul play. Coroner Thomas Noguchi closed the case 2 weeks after her death. One theory about Wood's disappearance is known as the banging dinghy theory, introduced by Wagner in second and last statement to the police. According to this theory, Wood was in the master cabin of the boat when she heard the dinghy banging against the side. She got up to retie it, slipped on the swim step on the stern, and either became stunned or knocked unconscious and rolled into the water. However, as many have pointed out, the dinghy was tied off with 2 lines, so it wouldn't have made any noise. And would she really have been so concerned about this? And if so, wouldn't she tell this to the captain and ask him to fix it? Or would she, with her fear of the ocean, really get so close to the water herself? The Wagner was present, but did not cause the fall of Wood's theory. Woods could, of course, have slipped and fallen into the water right after arguing with Wagner, and that he didn't see the fall because he had gone down to his cabin, and she slipped after that had happened. On the other hand, if Wagner and Woods were arguing and Wagner caused Woods to fall by accident, and she then hit her head on the way down, knocking her out and then quickly drowned, it would be considered manslaughter. If he intentionally pushed her so that she fell, was knocked unconscious and fell into the water, it would, of course, be murder. But to prove murder, there must be evidence that someone intentionally put Wood in the water, and there were no eyewitnesses to the moment when Woods fell into the sea. One other possibility is that Wagner did see the fall, but refused to help her, which does not constitute a crime in California because there is no duty to act if someone is in danger. In other words, falling in by accident. Even if Wagner had accidentally caused this and he didn't help her, it would, legally, not be a murder or crime. Welcome to America, the land of the free and the home of the brave. Davern, who has been silent about the tragedy for 30 years, now says that Wagner immediately came up with a story and told him and Walken to stick to it. He claims that his nightmare was just beginning because Wagner insisted on him moving into his guest house in Beverly Hills and stay indoors at all times. He felt like a prisoner and stayed there for several months before he left for the East Coast, but says that he never was able to escape the past. He says that he is now coming forward, not because money or fame, but to do Natalie Wood justice. Lena Wood, Natalie's sister, says that Davern called her in the early 90s and told her that Natalie's death wasn't an accident, and that she now believes that Wagner pushed Natalie into the water.
Do you think she was pushed in the water?
Yes,
You believe it was her husband, R.J. Wagner?
absolutely. Yes.
Walken has refused to comment or elaborate on what happened that night.
We have to ask you about Natalie Wood because, as you know, they've reopened the case. You were there that night. What do you think happened, Christopher?
Well, you know, I stopped talking about that 30 years ago, and there's so much information, books and internet. Anything you want to know, just go look.
In his memoir, Pieces of My Heart, Wagner later acknowledged having an argument with Wood prior to her disappearance, but he stated that he had calmed down and gone to bed. It was revealed during the autopsy that Wood had a blood alcohol content of 0.14 and traces of two types of medication in her bloodstream, a motion sickness pill and a painkiller, both of which can intensify the effects of alcohol. According to Davern, Wood had been flirting with Walken, which made Wagner jealous and enraged. Davern also claimed that after Wood's disappearance, he prevented him from turning on the searchlights and notifying authorities. 2 witnesses on a nearby boat reported hearing a woman scream for help during the night. In 2012, the Los Angeles County Chief Coroner, Lakshmanan Satyavakeswaran, amended Wood's death certificate, changing the cause of death from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. The amended document stated that the circumstances surrounding how Wood ended up in the water were not clearly established. Furthermore, on January 14, 2013, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office issued a 10-page addendum to Wood's autopsy report, suggesting that she may have sustained some of the bruises on her body before drowning. On February 1, 2018, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department named Wagner a person of interest in the investigation into Wood's death, but no further action has been taken since then. But what do you guys think? Was it an accident, or did Robert Wagner get away with murder? And what do you think of Davern and Walken's roles in all of this? Please leave a comment below and give it a thumbs up and subscribe. I cover a lot of different historical topics here on my channel, so please check out my other videos to see if there are others you find interesting. And I hope to see you in the next one.